Okay, hey, this is Randy Kirk, and I am so excited I can hardly believe it. I've got Dillon Loomis on the show. If you didn't already recognize him, there he is over there. Dillon is going to join us today, and we're going to interview Dillon, and we're not going to go necessarily 100% on Tesla news today, but we're going to talk a little bit more about who is Dillon Loomis and what gets him up in the morning. But we can't bury the lead, Dillon. I mean, it is the day after earnings. What in the world did you think?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it wasn't super impactful for me either way. It was kind of in line with expectations. I think my biggest takeaway had to do with Tesla shifting the focus to operating margin. So I think that implies that they know that Tesla Energy, the ramp is here, right? Like we've been talking about it for a while. We knew it was coming at some point, but this is the time with the Lathrop facility, with Megapack 2. It's just that's going to finally make a more meaningful impact to Tesla's bottom line, I think, by the second half of this year. And the narrative will finally be able to shift from Tesla being just a car company to much, much more. And as fans and investors, we've known that Tesla's more than that, but the bears in Tesla Q have had the argument that, well, hey, 95% of Tesla's revenue comes from what? Automotive. So thus, Tesla is an auto company. But what we've been saying, and that's part of why I started the channel, is, hey, Tesla for years now has been working on all of this new technology, whether it's 4680s, FSD, AI, Megapacks, battery storage, VPP, that they may not be generating revenue yet, but that time is coming. So this is that one of that first waves where the time is here. And again, I just think Tesla's shifting, and they now want investors to focus on operating margin because that's what Tesla's optimizing for. And that signifies that auto gross margins now are not the laser focus. It's that, and that ties Tesla Energy into it. And so that's my biggest takeaway. But yeah, from a quarterly call standpoint, I don't ever get too high or low. I'm a long-term investor. I just enjoy learning more about the company and hearing what, Elon and co have to say. So from a number standpoint, nothing really stood out too much to me personally.
So the market was up 11%, though. Not the market. Tesla was up 11% today, which is a nice move after even after already being up, significantly for the year. My takeaway was maybe the conservative nature of the call and the kind of grown-up Elon Musk or something. Why do you think the market was up so strongly today?
Yeah, sure. It could be. It's always a myriad factors, right? Personally, I think it's all about expectations. I just think Wall Street has really been lowering the bar on Tesla. They see the recession coming. They see the slowdown coming in all of the PMI data and the labor data. And so they just thought things were going to be worse. I think not only in the numbers that Tesla delivered in Q4, more importantly, though, in what Tesla guided for, 1.8 to 2 million. And we can talk about that flatline growth and why that's not as big a deal as some people may think. Average sale price will still be over 47,000. Auto gross margins should stay over 20% even after the price cuts. So I just think it was kind of a relief for Wall Street. They're like, oh, okay, it's not going to be as bad as we may have thought. And so again, that bar just got low and it made it easier for Tesla to jump right over it. And that's kind of what they did.
Yeah, I think that is also true. So 1.8 million doesn't sound like, it's like you say, oh, so what, but it is 50% growth.
Yeah.
And with a range up to 2 million, which would be significantly over 50% growth.
Yep. And as I've been saying now on the channel for weeks, I mean, whether we're in a recession or going into it, you can argue either side, but either way, we should be expecting a slowdown this year, right? We're just in a different environment. They said interest rates are higher. Tesla cars are 10% more expensive. So it's not logical to expect Tesla to keep these same growth rates in this year when the monetary environment and the economic environment is totally different. So everybody has to keep that in mind, but also you can't just take what Tesla did in sales in 2021 and say, okay, let's multiply that by 1.5 or 2022 or any year, because that's not really how the guidance works. They started that 50% CAGR in 2020. So we have to do that math from 2020, which they literally put a picture on the earnings deck so people would know this and be like, stop making this mistake. Now, granted, Tesla makes it more confusing than they have to, but from that 50% CAGR puts Tesla on track for like 1.7 million this year. So from that standpoint, they're actually ahead of their guidance, if you will. But again, looking at every other legacy OEM, their sales are in steep decline, but no one's batting an eye about that. It's like, oh, Tesla's not going to grow 60%. The world's ending. They're going bankrupt. But meanwhile, Toyota, Ford, GM, their sales are down 10, 20, 30%, and no one seems to care. So it's just funny how the media treats all this stuff.
So then I put a video up this morning, and I was taking a look at, well, okay, this is 2023, and we're looking at, only 1.8 to 2. But then if you take a 50% on that, you're approaching 3 million in 2024. And that starts to become, and probably back to normal margins and probably back to higher retail cost per car. That could be a blowout. That could be huge.
Absolutely. And I would add that I think the 2023 guidance is somewhat of a sandbag. Again, I have my expectations low because there really is a ton of uncertainty, and not even Elon or Drew or anybody knows. But Elon you can read between the lines, and him saying, oh, it could be 2 million. He was kind of laughing at that 1.8 million guidance of saying, well, I guess we have to put that out because that's how Wall Street plays the game. But they know internally their goals are higher than that, and probably even higher than 2 million, honestly.
So the energy thing has been all the talk. I know that everybody's getting tired of me, rah-rahing my book and saying, hey, we broke this news back in October, way before zero-sum 33, zero-sum game 33. I'm always blowing his name. But be that as it may, what's your current takeaway? You're fairly conservative in the way you look at things. Do you think we're already at 25 a day of these containers, or do you think it's much less than that? Or do you have a clue?
So I have a guess, and I'll give it to you. It's an informed guess because I am covering this a lot closer now because it's just, there's more going on and it's more impactful to the financials. And shout out honestly to Zero Sum Game if he happens to see this, because he's really has been like spearheading this, at least on social media, and he's done a lot of good research. And so yeah, shout out to him. But I think currently the production rate is a little bit lower than 25 per day. What it is, I couldn't tell you. And I think guessing is kind of a fool's errand. I was hoping to get somewhat of an update on the Lathrop facility, and I have my own opinions on who is moderating these earnings calls, because I think some of the questions from the investors, there's some good ones on there, but they don't always get asked. And it's almost like we need somebody like Farzad doing that, because he's so plugged into the community and knows what we're all really wanting to know about.
I vote for you.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like, yeah, exactly. My vote is for Farzad. I have too much other stuff going on. If they needed me, I'd probably do it. But, yeah, but again, like I always say, whether it's 5 or 25 right now, it doesn't mean too much, because they're going to get to 25 and they're going to surpass that, and they're going to hit that 40 gigawatt hours a year at some point. Whether it's at the end of this year or the end of 2024, as a long-term investor, it really doesn't matter that much. And I just think too many people get caught up in the details and the weeds, and it's fine. We all enjoy it. I like it too. Yeah. But if it's starting to like stress you out or causing you to lose faith in the company because they said 40 gigawatt hours is a capacity, but they're only at 10, is something wrong? I think a lot of people subconsciously think this way and they don't even realize it. So I don't think that's healthy. But again, the margins, are they 20%? Are they 50%? Honestly, if I had to guess, I would say right now, ramping the factory, they're lower. They could be 10, 20%. But once they hit more economies of scale and those fixed costs for that factory are set and they're producing more megapacks from there, then absolutely, once it's ramped, it's going to sound crazy, but with the Inflation Reduction Act on both the producer and the consumer side, 50% margins are squarely in play. And I'm not just saying this because of Zero Sum Game. I'm saying it because of all the research that I've done. And from that standpoint, I did some simple math, with the factory fully ramped, I think it worked out to $6 billion a year that Lathrop would be adding in profit to Tesla's bottom line. So again, maybe that's the end of 2024, but in 2021, 2021, Tesla did $5.5 billion in profit for the year. Now, I don't know what it was over, I think $12 billion this year. I forget what the exact number was. But for context, that's a pretty meaningful addition, you know, just from one Lathrop factory.
Oh yeah.
And Elon just said on the call, there's going to be more globally. Yes. And so that we're literally on the precipice of this business getting started, and it's really exciting for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So then the third leg, he had three legs, but I have the different three legs. So I have the automotive, which is already there, and we kind of have some clues to where that's going. Leg two is energy. Leg three for me is semi. And so we got the big announcement the other day with regard to what's happening in Reno or in Sparks. I assume, because we only have this information, that the 50,000 a year is going to come out of Sparks. But if they are going to have an entire factory, is it only going to be 50,000 a year? Is that just the starting number? Is that phase one? My buddy, Brian Wong, who was one of the contributors to the Elon Musk mission and a brilliant guy, and somebody who's famous actually for being able to prognosticate and get it right, he believes they'll do more than 1 million of these semi-trucks a year sometime in the future. I've tried to mellow him out and say, hey, let's just go for 1 million a year. What, you have any takeaways right now on the whole semi thing?
Of course, yeah. So 1 million a year seems too optimistic. I'll just be honest. And I am obviously a very bullish on Tesla. However, when you look at the market for this type of semi, I'm not even sure the market is that big for 1 million trucks per year.
If you count China, Europe, India, I mean, a lot of these countries do a lot of, so yes, it would require a specific vehicle, not the same vehicle as here. It would almost certainly have to be made on continent where it's going to be used. But there's the market is over 4 billion a year. I'm 4 million a year. I'm sorry. All these zeros.
Yeah, I know it is tough to keep track of so many numbers. I mess it up all the time. So yeah, I think that nuance is really important because so when people say semi, they're like, okay, all big trucks are in this semi category. However, Tesla's really is still geared for like local type delivery. That's exactly what Pepsi is doing. And so that market would need to be segmented out from the overall semi market. And I know some people on Twitter have done some research, but again, I won't be able to pull the numbers off the top of my head. Either way, though, the demand is unlimited for what Tesla can make. And ultimately, that's all that matters for the next few years. And I keep saying that the Megapack, the Semi, and the Cybertruck are recession proof. Yeah. And shout out to Jeff on Twitter. We were just on a Twitter space yesterday talking about the same thing. Take the Semi, for example. It's simple. For these fleet companies that have money, big companies, Pepsi, these are not consumers, who may be feeling the pinch right now of inflation. These are huge multinational conglomerates. Right. So if the economics of the Semi make sense, what are they going to do? They're going to buy it because they need to save money, right? So it's really that simple. So recession or not, it's not going to impact those big companies as much. Not only that, but they already have a huge backlog for semi orders. I have a chart. I haven't referenced it in a while, but I mean, the backlog for semi orders is into the thousands easily, which again, I mean, it's probably, I don't even want to give you a guess number because I would have to look at the chart. But Tesla's production rate now is what, a handful a week? Yeah. And what's that going to ramp to this year? I think Elon said 40 or 50,000 in 2024. But again, I think that's overly optimistic because it's probably going to take at least a year, maybe two, to expand on Giga Nevada to build out this new semi factory, if you will. So we're going to have to wait. But honestly, I think it's perfect because this will give Tesla a chance to iterate on the semi design. They're going to get feedback from Pepsi and other customers and be able to continue to make changes because Tesla's products are never really done. They don't do the pencil down thing. And so this will give them a chance to work out some kinks and change things before they have this new factory up and running. So it's just such a perfect setup. And again, the demand is From a tax credit perspective, we're talking what, $30,000-$40,000 for these companies buying one of these semis. I mean, my goodness, the incentives are so incredible. So yeah, it just seems like a no-brainer.
And you haven't even mentioned the social justice side of it. So,
Exactly.
So if I'm Pepsi or if I'm any of these companies and I can buy an electric truck that's going to save me $60,000 a year, and I get a $30,000 or $40,000 check from the government for doing it, and I get to say I'm going green, oh my goodness, it's like, why would I even hesitate? It makes no sense.
Exactly. And all the media headlines you get with Tesla, because Tesla gets clicks, and you'll get this whole new fan base of customers that want to support you in little ways. And so, yeah, there's like endless reasons why companies should be going this way. And but the most important one for me, and again, a big part of why I got into Tesla in the first place, people are dying from the air that we breathe. And it's simply due to the, pollution from cars,
right,
especially in dense cities. And if you looked at all those pictures before and after during COVID, when they had the cars out on the road versus everybody secluded, smoky, clear, and part of the problem is you can't see it. So, and it's not always like certain deaths and illnesses and problems aren't always attributed to it.
You can't see it where you live. Okay. I'm old enough. I'm old enough, and I've lived in Los Angeles long enough to where when I first moved to LA back in the 60s, I was there for a month before I knew there were mountains.
It's nuts, man. And we're laughing, but it's honestly like it's scary and it's bad because it's harming children and people. And it's a silent killer, if you will. So yeah, cleaner air. I'm all about it. Semi, that's the way,
And semi trucks also put off all that brake dust, which is way more hard on your health than just the exhaust fumes from the semis.
Yeah, good point.
There's also sound pollution that gets cut back. So there's a bit. So now I'm gonna make you Techno King for the day. Okay, because no company in my recollection, and you were in finance before, right?
Correct.
So you were following, like, you were you were looking at all the stocks out there and making stock picks and doing the research and everything else. Okay, so you've way more than me probably. You've watched all these companies over the years. Have you ever seen a company that had a bigger bundle, a bigger opportunity in so many different ways than Tesla does right now?
I mean, it's a simple answer, and absolutely not. And just to give the audience some context, if they don't know. So I was a financial advisor with Edward Jones for 4 years, and I managed over $65 million of money for other people. Loved it. Was a huge blessing while I was there. But ultimately, I always wanted to work for myself. Got interested in some other things, and life led me elsewhere. But so, yeah, and that's what I always say for Tesla. The way I see it from a risk adjusted standpoint, it is just really a no-brainer. Now, I can't sit here and tell people like everybody should own Tesla, because that's just insane, right? Everybody's situation is so different and unique, and everybody's risk tolerances are very different. Their investing objectives are different. However, when you look at it strictly from a financial perspective and a risk reward perspective, there is nothing even in the same conversation for me. And again, it's just not that complicated. Like, if you look at their main product lines and where the world is headed in terms of sustainable energy and using this sun that is there to generate and store energy to power our clean vehicles, and it's just really such a no-brainer.
And this is not investment advice.
No, of course. No. And that's why, because everyone's situation is just so different. But at the same time, I do encourage people to, if they're at zero exposure and, over the next few years, it's like, I haven't heard a good argument for being on zero. Let's put it that way, especially after 2022, maybe 2021 when it was slightly got ahead of itself, but yeah.
So even being conservative, we can look at the automotive thing. We can look at the energy thing. We could look at the solar thing. We could look at the robot thing. We can look at just the semi by itself, which I can make an argument at 1 million units could be a $500 billion business. There are so many opportunities, and the opportunities are not over here. They're not way out in the distance. These are things where there are factories that are in the process of actually creating the things that we're talking about. And that doesn't even count dojo and insurance and the supercharger stations and everything else. But now they have so many opportunities. There's limitations on brain power, and Elon has even talked about this before. There's a bandwidth issue, and it's not just his bandwidth. It's the bandwidth of his team. It's the bandwidth of the employees as a whole. There's a bandwidth in terms of suppliers, like for instance, in building factories, you need outstanding construction people in order to build these factories the way they're building them. So there's bandwidth issues all around. You can have all of these opportunities in front of you, but you can't, for instance, go from 2 million cars in 2023 to 10 million cars in 2024. And you can't go from 50,000 semi-trucks in 2024 to 1 million in 2025. All of these things take ramps, and they take money, and they take brains, and they take people. So now you're sitting there, you're techno king for the day. How do you prioritize these opportunities?
Oh, geez, Randy, what a good question. I, of course, would want more time to think about it, but I think at the end of the day, it would just boil down to what the data says and what the numbers are. And because Tesla can see the demand in ways that we don't. And I think one thing that really gets overlooked is the government incentives. So, we feel pretty informed as a Tesla community because there's so much content, and it's great. We do the best we can, but it's really a fraction of what Tesla has going on behind the scenes. And for us to start to think like we would know better is just really laughable. Even whether you're talking about Rob or Dave or whatever your Tesla GOAT community member would be, Stephen, Mark, Ryan, whatever, they don't know a fraction of what even like doesn't have to be Elon, but someone under Elon would know, because in these conversations, they play such a big role in where Tesla will open up factories and what their next move is going to be. Is Mexico going to give them enough incentives to put the factory there? Or is Indonesia going to do something and, change import rates or change something with nickel exports where it makes it more favorable? Like all of these discussions we have no insight into. So I'll give you an answer to play along with you, but I just need that point to be made because I think it's really important for Tesla investors to remember that, because I see a lot of investors now on social media getting louder about what Elon should do, what Tesla should do, like that they actually think they know better. And I'm like, you're entitled to have your opinion, but if you really think you know better than Elon, then I don't know what to tell you. And not to get too far off on a tangent, but this is just what I do. When it comes to marketing and communication, I do think Tesla has been doing better with Twitter and YouTube, putting out educational content. And I'm not saying they need to advertise per se, but I am saying there's such an opportunity for that educational content direct from Tesla about EVs, about Powerwalls and solar and stationary storage. I still have very smart friends who don't know that Teslas are electric vehicles, and I'm just like, I'll ask them about, oh, what do you think about Tesla's full self-driving? And they'll say, what? Like, what's that? So, from that standpoint, and these are my friends, I do this for a living. They know what I do and they still don't know this. So that like your average Joe still has no idea. So yes, I do think they could be better with educational content, but they have started to get better. So I'll give them that. Now back to your original question.
You stall.
Yeah, exactly. But I haven't been thinking much about my answer. It really seems like Megapack needs to be a bigger focus, just because the auto story is kind of already written. Tesla makes the best electric vehicles. Some people will debate it, but far and away, anybody that knows what they're talking about, you can objectively make the argument they're just better. They've been doing it for the longest amount of time. They're very vertically integrated, the most vertically integrated. Some may argue BYD, but how much do Americans really know about that? Not much. So when it comes to the Megapacks, again, it's really about total addressable market. And again, you can argue that, okay, well, only 5% of cars are now electric, and if we're going to 100%, talk about an addressable market. Yeah, right. However, until Tesla gets to a lower price vehicle, they're only right now addressing maybe 25% of the auto market.
Right.
So Tesla's, of course, working on that. So yeah, I'm just saying, I personally, I guess, would shift more toward megapack and utilities, because think about peaker plants and global energy generation and storage. This blueprint has been proven in South Australia. It's financially the way to go. Tesla is just supply constrained. So maybe it's because they couldn't get enough semiconductors. We know that's hurt the battery storage business more than it's hurt auto over the past few years. But as that subsides, they should be pouring resources into more production, because that's the only thing holding it back. But again, not to like keep ducking your question, but it's like they're already working on all of these things. It's just they've been constrained, whether it's batteries, chips, talent, so like my answer, I guess, would be megapacks and utilities. And home HVAC. I'm really interested in learning more about that personally.
I love it.
Yeah, I just want to know what their timeline is and how far along they are, how many people are working on this project. Is it just an idea, or do they have some things fleshed out for how this may work? Very curious about that, because again, talk about the addressable market. I mean, most homes, that's going to be a more efficient, cheaper option. So that's my long-winded answer.
So now I'm going to throw out one of my little hobby horses, and then maybe you'll have a hobby horse that you can throw back at me. Maybe I watched your channel almost religiously, but I might have missed that you have a hobby horse. But my hobby horse is Optimus. And I've been making the claim that they are going to actually hand build at least 300. Who cares what the number is, 250, 200. I'm saying at least 300, maybe as many as 1,000, and actually put them to work in the factories doing useful tasks this year. It's easy to hand build these robots. They've shown how fast they can build them. Once you've got them started, you've got, some of the components done, you can start maybe putting up little tiny lines to make some of the actuators and make some of the things. But overall, you can 3D print all of it. 3D printing is a pretty significant part of manufacturing today. So I'm saying, why wouldn't you build 300 to 1,000 of these robots this year, put them in useful places? Now they start to bring in data, and you can iterate over and over and over again over the course of that year. And then by the end of the year, you should be able to put up a little line. You should be able to actually start a pilot line for making the robots, rather than everybody else thinking this is 5 years away. So what do you think about my crazy idea?
Yeah, so it doesn't sound crazy. I mean, honestly, I personally don't know how fast they can hand build these. That would be an interesting question to explore. But from a practical standpoint of gathering data, I think that's the point right there that nails it. I mean, if you can actually have even a few where they're doing whatever they may be doing, picking up boxes, walking, they just need to start gathering data exactly like they do with the fleet of vehicles. It's going to be the same model, just a different use case. So like you said, maybe it's not 300, maybe it's 30. Maybe it's 30 Optimuses walking around doing stuff, gathering data as they get a production line set up. But again, for me, I am very conservative. I like keeping my expectations low, and I've followed Elon and Tesla enough to know that their timelines aren't always accurate, but they do always deliver. And so for Optimus, it does feel like a few years away until they have a production line and are pumping them out. And especially when we're talking about selling these to consumers, I think there could be a period of years where it goes to businesses or just Tesla first. Before they're in.
As a guy who owned a factory, I would have already had my order in. I mean, I don't have to see any more. Right. I already can see use cases right now for my plastics factory that the robot would have been great for. So
yes,
just the guy that we saw, he was moving things and putting them over here. That's enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, the second half of my idea is that even if they cost $100,000 a piece to build them one at a time, and you build 300, that is only $30 million. That's really no money.
Drop in the bucket for Tesla at this point.
All right. You have any hobby horses? Do you have any wild and crazy thoughts about Tesla that you're thinking maybe they're gonna, that you've been talking about on your channel and nobody's paying attention to you, like they aren't paying attention to mine?
Yeah, honestly, not really. Like, I wish I had a more exciting, entertaining answer, but I am much more of a data present person than I am a prognosticator or predictor of the future. It's really just how I'm wired. And so I just go along with Tesla as they go. As they come out with new announcements and products, I'll look into them and research. And as they have go into different markets, I like learning about those markets. But I'm not your guy looking for, oh, what crazy thing could Tesla do? Because it's not that it doesn't interest me. It's just I have so much in my life outside of Tesla that consumes my time that I enjoy and love learning about, that for me, like, because I can't predict what's going to happen next week, let alone 3 years. So it's just not an exercise I personally find myself doing. There's of course nothing wrong with it. The world needs people to do that. I'm just not one of them. So I really don't have anything special. I'm obviously super pumped about the Cybertruck, and I like look into that probably more than anything else, but that would be my boring answer for you, Randy.
But you created the perfect segue. You
Meant to be.
unknowingly, you say, well, I have all these other things going on in my life. So I know you speak a little bit on your channel about the other things that are going on in your life, but let's segue into who is Dillon Loomis at the heart of it. So you have a wife, but I don't know if you have any kids.
We don't.
No children yet. Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
No, we may in the next year or two. We're definitely talking about it, praying about it. So we'll see. And I'll keep this short because I know not everybody cares honestly about who I am. They just like hearing about Tesla, and that's totally fine. But for those that do care, so really career-wise, again, was a financial advisor, talked about that. I worked in fitness and health and wellness for about 4 years. I was a sales director. I competed in men's physique, qualified for nationals, but realized quickly I didn't want to do that as my career. So that was my pursuit into fitness at the time. I've worked for some startups here locally. And then as I was supposed to start one with a friend of mine, some things didn't work out. But while I was waiting for him to sort some things out in his life, I started Electrified. Fast forward, and here we are. But really who I am, most people on my channel will know I'm a Christian first and foremost, born again believer. Believe that Jesus is Lord and that he is the only way to heaven and salvation. And when I'm gone, that's the one thing I want to be remembered for, is that's who I am. I'm a Jesus guy first and foremost. That's what my family and friends know me as. So if you want to know who I am, that's really who I am. Most people watching know me as the Tesla guy, which is cool too, but not not even in the same conversation. Outside of that.
Well, in the green room, before we started, we had a little conversation about that. And I'd love you to tell my audience, because I'm also a born again Christian. I'm a sold out Christian guy, and I was so impressed with your Christmas message, and so I was really curious as to how people received that message. And so tell my audience how that was received.
Yeah, overall it was good. I mean, I had shared the gospel one other time, and there was definitely a lot of people that didn't like it. They said, "Hey, I'm not here for that. This is a Tesla channel," and I understand that. That's what they're saying is not wrong. But again, this just trumps my channel. It's way bigger than me or Electrified or any of that. Yeah. But overall, it was very, very encouraging, very well received. I got a lot of messages and emails from other Christians that were feeling encouraged, and they shared it with their other believers or maybe non-believers. Even some atheists or agnostics, self-proclaimed, they said they enjoyed how I shared the gospel, and they respected that I did it and how I did it. So again, it has nothing to do with me. All glory to God. And hopefully some seeds were planted that the Lord will ultimately water. But, I don't do it for the reaction. I don't do it because it's not like, oh, look at me, I'm a Christian. Not at all. It's like, I genuinely believe this to be true, that this is the only way to get to heaven. And I don't make this up. I'm just the mailman, right? I'm just delivering the news of what the Bible says. And I know the Lord personally. I have an intimate relationship with him, and I want other people to have that hope and joy and peace and forgiveness that only comes from Jesus, who has overcome the grave and provided the perfect life so we don't have to live it. And that's what I want people to know. And it's not about me, it's about him. All glory to God.
So for many years, I was part of a group called FCCI, Fellowship of Companies for Christ International, and a group of business owners. We'd sit around a table and we'd talk about the Bible, we'd talk about our businesses, but the main reason we were meeting was to talk about the impact, or the fact that the business was just on loan to us from God, that it was God's business, it was on loan to us, and that we needed to treat our businesses as ministries. How does that fact impact your daily business life?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, honestly, Randy. I mean, for me, life is just far more fulfilling when I have an eternal purpose and I'm not just working for views or money, or obviously even a more meaningful purpose, like, to be of value to the audience. That's really, from a worldly perspective, one of my main drivers is I just want to be valuable. I want to, gather news and do it efficiently and help keep people informed and all of that good stuff. But again, it just is not even in the same conversation when I'm doing that, but with my heart to serve the Lord, right? To just be a good steward, to be a light of his goodness and grace and hope and joy and logic and thinking and reason. Like, all of these things were made in his image, and we're unique creatures that have these abilities, and they're from him. And so I've often said, he to whom much is given, much is required. And that's always stuck with me from the first time I knew that that was kind of a biblical idea. And I just want to use the tools and resources God has given me for his glory, ultimately. And that's looks like different things in different ways. And it doesn't always have to be preaching the gospel per se, because I've had people message me and say, hey, like, you seem different, you don't swear, you listen, just little things that it's easy to be a light in this world where there's so much darkness. So it's always on my heart and mind, and I'd like to say it's every single day where that's my mindset, but sadly I'm in my flesh, and so it's not. But more often than not, that is my prayer, and I usually pray before I record and before I work, and just that, again, he uses me for his glory, whatever that may look like.
All right. So the other part of who you are currently and who you are moving towards being is in the health and fitness area. And I know you have a couple sponsors that participate in that now, but how do you, give me your take on the health and fitness of the American No, that would be too easy.
It would be. That's a no-brainer.
What is your thinking? And I know you probably don't want to discuss business plans you might have. Maybe they're too premature for that. But what is your, in general, what do you think needs to be done that you can do? What is the thinking along those lines?
Sure. Yeah. So for those that don't know, fitness and wellness has always been a big part of my life. You may not be able to tell because, right now I look fairly normal, but I got hurt in 2019, 2020, had some family stuff, 2021, 22, we were moving, doing a bunch of house renovations and taking care of our living situation. So it's just kind of honestly been on the back burner. But 2023, again, Lord willing, will be the year that I'm like super fired up about fitness and wellness. And I have a coach and all this different stuff. And so getting back into it like full bore outside of Electrified. With that said, I'll keep it simple. Eliminate processed foods, try to eat whole, nutritious, nutrient dense stuff. I can't give specific advice because everybody's body's different and people need to know what nutrition plan may work for one person may literally kill another. And so if anybody that's giving this flat out advice, vegan, meat diet, whatever, like whatever your narrative is, you have to know anybody that's saying everybody should do it doesn't know at all what they're talking about. It's way more nuanced and complicated than people realize. But again, I would just encourage people to listen to their body, pay attention. When you eat certain foods, do you have reactions? Are you bloated? Or do you have digestive issues? And then you just kind of go from there and figure it out. But simply, people need to move more. They need to wear blue light blockers before they go to bed. They need to get off their phone before they go to bed and sleep in pure darkness in a certain temperature. They need to try to sleep with the sunlight and get their circadian rhythm balanced. And in the morning, they should be taking cold showers and going outside and getting sunlight for even 10 minutes. And
okay, up till then you had me. But this, I guess it was Joe Rogan. Doesn't he take ice baths in the morning every day?
He might. I don't follow him as closely anymore. I've obviously watched some of his guests. However, the science and the data is like indisputable. So most people, that's my reaction. I can't even get them to take a cold shower. I've been trying to get my wife on board now for years. But genuinely, I firmly believe if you really care about like your health and wellness, it's just something that you'll do. And that sounds like pretty aggressive. And again, as always, ease into it. Maybe just start with 10 seconds and a little bit of cold. But for me, I just roll out of bed, flat out cold. And I live in a very cold state, so it's cold water. But you just have to learn how to breathe through it and all of that. But again, to reduce inflammation and for dopamine and to like just alert your systems in the morning, it's incredible. Um,
So
cool.
I do listen to my body, and generally speaking, my body is crying out for dark chocolate, um, banana nut muffins, and really, really good chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, whose isn't, right? That's part of the problem is we just get our bodies become accustomed to running on certain things. So if you eat a lot of carbs, your body's going to learn how to run and produce energy with carbs. So it's hard to overcome it, but it can be done, and again, it's just learning. Some people's bodies do great with a ton of carbs and other people can't have any. They'll have a little bit and then they'll just blow up. So again, you have to know yourself and know your body. But yeah, there are just a lot of very simple things, even at home, like when you wake up in the morning, just flexing your biceps or your shoulders for like a minute or two to get some blood flow and into that muscle. And whether it's yoga or stretching or whatever you enjoy, there's just a lot of little levers that people aren't pulling that they can be. And if you look at America, I mean, it seems like everybody is sick and on statins and has poor health and is depressed and anxious, and we're not created to be this way, and I think society and culture just teaches you that this is normal. And now the medicine and drug industry is making all this money just throwing drugs at people, and they don't know any better. But the education is now out there. The science is out there. I'd point people to people like Peter Attia, Andrew Huberman, even Ben Pakulski when it comes to like a muscle movement perspective. There's just a lot of really smart people putting out really great research data, and just, do you want it or not?
So we live in a land of the greatest abundance in the history of the world. The poorest among us live better than kings did 300 years ago. 150 years ago, the literacy rate was 5%, and now the literacy rate is 95% worldwide. There's almost nobody that's dying from malnutrition anywhere in the world today. It's like I think it's under 1 million people a year out of 7 to 8 billion. So we live in this amazing abundance, and it looks like the abundance is going to get even greater. You and I know part of the reason I follow Tesla and follow Elon Musk is because everything that he's doing is going to be just adding to this potential massive abundance that we're on the precipice of. But it doesn't look like it's really helping people to have all this abundance. People are still killing themselves and hurting themselves and doing drugs and messing up and they're, even though we've had a pretty good period of no significant war, along comes Putin. He wants to mess that up. So we know that Jesus is the answer, but if we keep it secular for a second, mm-hmm. What do we do, to keep, how do we solve the rest of it?
I think it's simple, really. I just think we have too much comfort and too much abundance. We have easy access to all. And again, our society is built on speed and fast food and the grocery store. I mean, 80% of it is garbage, pure processed garbage. And so again, it just has to start with the individual and learning these things and understanding what's going on. And even with farming, what's going on in that industry that's driven by money. And that's why, for example, like I'm not sponsored by this company, but my wife and I just started using a company called ButcherBox. They just do all the farming perfectly, grass-fed, grass-raised, no antibiotics, free roam, all the good things, right? And it's proven, and you can get your meat sourced well. And that's a simple thing. People always say, well, is organic worth it? And it always depends on, because it's different in every state and where you're getting it from. But knowing where your food is coming from and what they're doing to those animals, what they're injecting into it that you are then later eating, like this stuff matters. And it may not be like immediate, but over time, this is again why people have so many health issues. So what can we do? Simple, educate. That's where it starts. You have to know what's going on. You have to care. People need to care about their health. I just think some people don't care. And again, that's their choice, their body, their life. They're going to do what they want to do. But for the people that want to feel good, that want to have energy, that want to be confident, that want to be, all of these things, right? Like you can make it happen. They just need the encouragement and the hope and the education. And I think one day, hopefully I'll be a person assisting in that endeavor.
All right. Well, I thought that this would be a great opportunity for folks just to get to know you a little better. Is there any part of you or of the Tesla world or the Elon Musk world that is that we haven't covered that you think, Randy, how come you didn't ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, geez, again, that's a good question because there's so much, even from Tesla, that we barely scratched the surface on. I mean, I think the next generation 3 platform is a major one. This really does. There's so many YouTube videos, the game's over, end game, Tesla chess move. I get it. I've done it myself. But really, this next generation 3 platform could be the good night, the game over for ICE, for there to be any question on the way forward. Because if Tesla, whenever they release this, if the costs are really as low as they say, if it's as affordable as they're saying it's going to be, and then when they put a robotaxi situation, like actual FSD, it really is bonkers. It doesn't make any sense. And so again, I'm not expecting it anytime soon, but I think that's the real, as a Tesla investor, as a Tesla fan, I mean, you have to be excited about that, not just for affordability, but for how it's going to change the world and really revolutionize mobility. And we're not as far away as some people think, but we're also further than I think some super Uber bulls think. The March of the Nines, I'm not really, not you. The March of the Nines may take a while, but it's coming at some point. I don't know when, but it's coming.
All right. Hey, Dillon, this has been only too much fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
For sure.
Maybe, hey, what about the day after how about March 2nd? Should we set a date now for March 2nd?
I'd love to.
It's got to be a ton to talk about on March 2nd.
You would imagine. I do think we're going to get more of what people are hoping to hear about that they didn't hear at earnings the other day. So thank you for having me, Randy. It was a pleasure to finally get to chat with you, and I'm sure we'll be in touch on social, and then we'll link up again too.
All right, good. Well, if you liked any of that, if that was helpful, press like button. You know what to do. It's been great talking to you today.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.